Just a moment. All right. Tasa is joining. And while I'm waiting for him, oh, hey there, Dan. Welcome. So while I'm waiting for Tasa to come on, I just wanted to say welcome to anyone who joins into the room. Please invite your friends. And today's podcast, it's number 36. We're in our second season of the podcast, and this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. I put a tweet in my account just a moment ago, and if you click on that link, and I get a really great discount on online talk therapy, which I love to use. So it's a great service. And, they offer lots of other kinds of services for health, therapy, one-to-one therapy. Super great. Anyway, welcome, Tess. Really great to have you with us today. Hey. And hopefully other people can hear as well. We'll do this interview, and then can possibly welcome up some people to ask questions if we still have time. But we're doing this for an hour, and great to have you with us.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So welcome. This is a podcast with the host. My name is Zunian, founder of MoodConnect. Our mission is to create healthier workspaces. We focus on mental health, physical health, and financial health and wellness for all individuals, but specifically for employees in workspaces. How are you feeling today, Tess?
Oh, I'm feeling great. It's funny, we connected, it feels like forever ago, and it's so cool to be able to hear where you're at now, and I'm super excited to reconnect and tell you all about what we're doing.
Yeah, likewise. We met in February. I met Tess at Denver, DAO Denver.
Yep.
I was really, I was just really excited about the project that you're doing with Blockbuster DAO, particularly because, and I shared this in my Twitter account a few hours ago about some of the stories that I had, experiences with as being an employee of Blockbuster as my first job while I was in college. And it was such a wild time, and so I took a liking to your project right away, and I'm excited to hear more about Blockbuster DAO. But before we dive into Blockbuster DAO and what you're doing in that project, I wanted to ask because so many people in the world, they know about DAOs now because of emergence of Web3 and popularity of NFTs and crypto and all this stuff. But
yep.
For people who haven't heard of what a DAO is, by this point, could you share a little bit about how you see DAOs
Totally,
and what they mean to you?
Happy to. I think, the funny thing is, even if you don't know what a DAO is, you're not alone, because even I get a bit confused at times what exactly a DAO is. And I think people have different ideas of what it is. And, you know, you can really think about it as a way of, and this could be on chain or off chain, is really just decentralizing how you execute on things as an organization, and making sure that, you know, things like creating checks and balances, creating a vote. And, you know, a lot of people for DAOs in the crypto community do that on chain, you know, on the blockchain, so that, you know, it's immutable and there's like proof that you voted, and proof that a certain amount of people voted, and it allows certain people to vote. So it can be really effective tool for executing in mass. But you know, for us, we haven't released a token. We don't have any of that, and we function as a DAO today. And you know, it's probably not perfect, and we're slowly decentralizing certain aspects. But for instance, as an example, we did a brand sprint for what is Blockbuster in the future, with 800 plus participants participating in what exactly the future of Blockbuster looks like 5, 10, 20 years from now, what our vision and mission is collectively. And we did that off chain. And we did that, you know, just through a really well-structured process and form. And I think those are things that are very much part of being a DAO, but not necessarily all the convoluted, complex, financial kind of oversight that we kind of think about. And I think a DAO can really be anything. And, you know, and a lot of times in business, it's called a cooperative as well, right? So I think there's a lot of ways to, you know, peel a carrot, so to speak. And in this case, you know, I think it is complex. So if anybody felt worried about that, you don't have to be.
Oh yeah, I mean, I found that DAOs, they really represented, you know, what a true democracy can look like. You know, and
Yep.
I you know, but I've heard other kinds of you know, speculations of what DAOs are. You know, and I guess it can mean something different for different people, depending on what perspective you're coming into
For
a
sure.
DAO from, and also what the DAO is working on. You know?
Totally.
And also it has a lot to do with personalities that are, you know, that are organizing.
Absolutely. And exactly what you said, personalities that are organizing. I mean, a part of a DAO in you know, the US today, or most democracies, is we elect delegates, you know, through a decentralized system, which is voting, right? And it's not perfect, as we know. And a lot of times those delegates may not actually represent your vote, and they have private interests. And, you know, sometimes it can be complicated, but at a business level, it's really never been done that way. And I think that's a really interesting concept that I think people overlook. And you know, just by giving a little bit of voting power to the employees, giving voting power to the consumer, really goes a long way, especially when everybody's financial interests are aligned. Which I think in our traditional government, that's not supposed to be the case, right? And I think it is very new and novel, in that sense, that we have these personalities that could be very effective in this case.
Right, exactly. You know, perfect example of this. I'm involved in a DAO that well, it's getting to the structure of being more decentralized, which is called Crypto Mondays.
Yes.
Yeah, decentralized event. And I recently started working with, you know, this group of this organization, with Lou Kerner
Yep.
and you know, and Thor um and and we had our first Film Mondays on April 25th in Scottsdale, uh, and you know, it was a really great, it was a great success. We had, you know, lots of interested people showing up, and then we started to have a couple of local companies, um, startups that wanted to sponsor the event, and I was like, I don't know how that works, you know, like,
Yep.
oh, do I need to ask permission of how I should be taking the money, who I should be allocating through and all this kind of
Right.
stuff. And, you know, and I was asking the group these questions, and it was like, this is decentralized, Amy. You can do whatever you want.
Totally. And I think that's one
I
of
was
the
like,
things that
okay.
it's kind of complicated, because I think, you know, even we're dealing with that too. Is like there's decentralized where you decentralize oversight, or there's decentralized where you have completely autonomous people functioning for the best interest of the company or the organization. And sometimes there's kind of a fine line where it makes sense to do one or not the other. But you know, I think it's very complicated in that sense, because sometimes it feels like one is the best option, but you know, sometimes oversight is necessary. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's a balance to it, right?
totally.
Well, okay. So now we've gotten to a
Yes.
little bit more information about what a DAO is. Um, uh, so what is Blockbuster DAO?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, we started in December, and I had written a tweet. I had some other like Web3 concept projects in the works, but nothing was very concrete. And I kind of, the stars aligned, and I thought, you know, what a better way, like, what's better than combining the nostalgic power of an old brand like Blockbuster with what's possible in the film industry, and decentralizing that process and decentralizing that kind of on ramp that I've, as a creator, have seen firsthand. And I said, screw it, I'm going to send out a tweet. Let's see what happens. And the next thing we know, it blows up to, you know, we're at 15K on Twitter, and now 16K, and you know, 8,000 people in the Discord, and everybody's saying win token, and we're trying to figure out what exactly we're doing. And it's kind of the reverse of how many DAOs work, is where you take a lot of time to form a team and create strategic planning, and then you release a product, and then people subscribe to that product, and you grow over time. But we just had such rapid growth at such a very, very early stage, that it was kind of a very complicated problem to try and solve, and get people on board and put people in the right places, and you know, figure out where do we decentralize now. And over time, we've gotten our feet, the ground under our feet, and we've really been running and figuring out what exactly it is that we want to achieve in the film space, in the content space. And really our core mission that the community's outlined for us is that it's all about empowering creators. And for us, we are working on the plans to develop a platform that would be able to give creators the full amount of tools that they need to be able to monetize their content, scale their communities, and be able to share and market themselves efficiently. And I think we really wanted to focus on the distribution end, rather than trying to create a studio that's competing directly with creators and independent creators. Because I think, you know, when we see like Netflix and Apple, their strategy is, hey, we're going to have this platform, but we're going to have exclusive content that we're spending trillions and trillions of dollars on, essentially. And we don't have trillions of dollars. We don't have that kind. We probably couldn't ever raise that kind of money right away. So why try to create this, like, why try to go for that model or follow that model, which a lot of people in the space are trying to do. So we really aim to provide a back end solution with that gives creators all of the tools they need to be financially incentivized to create, unlike YouTube, right, where they take 30% of ad revenue, or TikTok, where only like the top 5% of creators actually get paid out from a fund, and you know, Netflix, where 90% of people are turned away and can't even post on the platform, or Amazon, where you basically just get shoved down to the very bottom, where nobody can even find you if you do post on Amazon. So we really wanted to create those back end tools that are accessible for creators, but we also wanted to make sure that all aligns with a front end consumer experience where people can share and consume content like they've never done before and be able to be directly involved with the collectibles and content of creators in a really unique way.
Wow. Okay. That is very interesting because I'd seen your, your project concept on and Twitter, but I didn't realize that it was also a like a decentralized version of YouTube.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's twofold, right? And that's not even including the part about Blockbuster. So,
Right.
I think a lot of people were really have been, and we're still working on, being able to acquire the brand and be able to use it. But unlike other DAOs who function like a SPAC or, an acquisitions company, they say, we're going to acquire this and that's going to be just kind of the end of it. Like, we're going to acquire this, like Spice DAO said, we're going to acquire this old manuscript of an old Dune book, and then we're going to figure it out from there. Or Constitution DAO says, we're going to buy this old version of the Constitution, and then we'll figure it out, right? Or I think like Ty Lopez is like, I'm going to buy Radio Shack, and then we'll just
right.
And I think that's silly. And if you're buying the brand, you really have to have intention behind how you're using it. So I think it's twofold, where everybody here in our community is really excited about Blockbuster, but we also need that secondary goal where, hey, we buy Blockbuster. How do we power that energy, that nostalgia into something that's really going to not only affect the 10,000, 15,000 people who are able to join the DAO, but be able to affect 100 million people who are creators, consumers, and really expand how much influence or how much change we can make in an industry that really needs it. So I think we really wanted to think bigger, and I think that platform, by changing that user interface for creators and focusing on what creators need, is so needed in such a crazy atmosphere where you have to post every day in order to hit the algorithm, or you have to grow a community organically, and there's no incentive for participation in those communities. You just have to reward them with more content, and it's just this never-ending treadmill.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. In fact, many years ago, when I was in grad school, I had a media professor who had said that YouTube actually they were missing the boat because they weren't creating, and there was no like original content that was being created
Yes.
by YouTube, and other services started doing this kind of stuff of having their own original content on, and all these other services, and then also eventually like Netflix and but YouTube never did that. It was all just creator content that would get capitalized,
Totally.
and YouTube would be benefiting from all the various creators, whether it was just regular everyday type people, or corporate corporate creators.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. Wow. Well, okay, so I've been on the Blockbuster Discord, and I see that it's it's vast global movement. How big is Blockbuster DAO? I mean, because I saw that
Totally.
you have people in China and and just really
Yes,
all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So at our highest, we were at about, and this is the interesting thing about growing an NFT community or crypto community, is how to measure or view your community. And so Discord can be a bit misleading, but I think the statistics are really interesting, is because when we started, we grew to about almost 9,000 in Discord. But over time, as we've been developing, working essentially like a seed startup, pre-seed startup, trying to figure out what we need to do. Like we need to be able to generate value. So we've been really working hard and bringing the right people and the right minds together. And that number's churned over time, which is reasonable because we haven't released a product. We haven't released a token because we don't want to do it without, all of our ducks in a row. And so we've seen our community kind of dwindle, like people have left, come back, and I think one of the interesting things to think about is when you create a Discord, right, which is kind of this foundational element right now in the NFT crypto space, those numbers are going to fluctuate a lot for many different reasons. One being there's going to be a lot of bots that jump on when something's announced, right? And there's a lot of people who are in there, they're promoting, they're gathering data, they're being a part of a bunch of things, like they have automations that are going on, joining, leaving, coming back when there's new information. And then you have the flippers, right, where people are coming in and they're going to try and see if like there's any alpha they can pull out, any like information that they need, and then they'll utilize that to just make a quick buck on a resale. And then you have people who are just like strolling in, and over time you have so many Discord servers that if one's not busy, you just say, oh, I'm gonna come back, like I'll leave, I'll come back, right? And with those factors in mind, given that we've really just been focused on building slowly and building deliberately, I think our churn has been pretty good, and we're at about just under 7,000 as we speak. And this is given there's no financial incentive, there's no skin in the game right now. We've really been able to build a strong community, and we're getting better and better about communicating, getting better at kind of figuring out what our pipelines are for delivering work, for sourcing work. And I think it's been an amazing experience to take that, just like that ball of energy that we started with, and turn it into just kind of this like stable candle, and I think that's really important, because everyone wants you to go so fast in the beginning, and if you kind of push things without really thinking about them, and maybe you see that in the other side release the other night or last night, like I guarantee you there was a lot of pressure to release that thing when they did, and as we can tell, like there was a lot of mistakes. It was clearly not thought through, and that's when you get bad PR. That's when you release a bad product, or at least a poorly thought out product. So I think the combination of like when you measure your community, Discord statistics aren't necessarily the best indicator. And I would say, like, when you look at Twitter, it doesn't feel like it costs you anything to follow someone. Maybe your feed gets a little bit more packed if that person's posting all the time, but I think Twitter I think is a very clear indicator of growth for communities, because people are trying to subscribe to like they would a newsletter, right? And I think now that Twitter has like newsletter integrations, things like that, I think Twitter is a really great place to be able to view, how your community is growing, like actual people that are engaged on the engagement ratios of different tweets, things like that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and you know what? A lot of social media, it turns to the way of just pure marketing. It starts to feel it that way, and I feel like Twitter, it still feels like people socializing about what they care about, what they want to talk about, and it's not just pure marketing. As opposed to like Instagram or even Facebook can sometimes feel that way. Like you're just constantly in
Totally.
this hamster wheel of marketing to other people being marketed to, and but it seems like Twitter is going in the direction of bringing people to gathering people together to work together and communication.
For sure. And I come from a background of paid marketing. Like that's where I work today. I work
likewise, same.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I've seen it at its height when Shopify is the be all end all, and like all of these small like direct to consumer brands are just scaling like bananas, and they're just throwing millions and millions of dollars at these ads, and they're working, and they can target micro demographics, and they can just be super specific when they retarget and hit returning customers. And it was at its highest and a really amazing tool for small businesses, and even for myself as a startup founder that worked in e-commerce. Like, it was a great tool, but I came in at the back end and I saw firsthand how the privacy implications that Apple is enforcing, and kind of the kind of change of the guard in terms of social media giants kind of moving towards Twitter, towards Reddit, more anonymous social media platforms. The data and the results were far worse. And if Facebook, we'd go into meetings with Facebook and they say, well, it's probably because you're a subscription service, or small food businesses aren't doing well. But then you'd look over on the other side, and some massive company with just tons of money is doing really well. So I think there are some problems for small businesses now with paid marketing. In the future, I really think the most efficient way is to really value organic community building, organic marketing, and building a roster of influencers can be hugely beneficial by cultivating a newsletter. Like, these things, people, especially in our space, in the crypto space, and like the NFT space, it's even more so because people have skin in the game and they want to read that information. But organic marketing can help really bring a new level of branding that I think markets itself, or empowering other people to be champions of your brand and involving them in the process, are hugely beneficial for growing it. We haven't had that before, I don't think, especially in like the kind of Facebook marketing boom. It was just sell, 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 sell. And now it's like there's like a more measured approach that's kind of needed to be able to compete. But it works for especially like people like us, who we've raised no money, we've invested no money into our business, but we're able to use certain initiatives, use certain community building exercises to really grow organically, and we're spending no money on it. So it's been really helpful to have things like Twitter and Discord for that.
Yeah. And I can just imagine. Okay, so you haven't raised any money, taken any kind of investments, I guess, and haven't spent any money, so to speak,
Right.
in building Blockbuster DAO. So I guess, but you have invested a lot of your time and energy into
Totally.
building the community, right? Of course, that's not capital, right? But
Right.
it's a pretty intense investment if you look at it, like the amount of hours that you put into that kind of thing. And I think you had said that you are still working in other, like doing another kind of job, and kind of
Yep.
balancing both of those things. So, um, has that, has that been a challenge, for you? And how have you been able to prioritize your own health while building Blockbuster DAO?
Oh, yeah, it's been tough. Like, I think the last like couple weeks have been really tough because I've been in the middle of a big campaign for work. And then I have to also go into pitch meetings for Blockbuster, and I'm really working 24 hours to make sure that like not only is our community happy and our team happy, but like I also have to do the corporate schlacking, so to speak, at my regular job. And
Yeah.
the biggest reason I'm anonymous is like just because I don't want my only source of income right now to be affected by them thinking, hey, like they're spending time, person is spending time on this crypto project, they're not invested in our company, like we're going to let you go, right? And then I would be really in trouble, I think, in terms of like being able, I'd have to find a new job and I'd have to figure it out. So it's been really complicated for me to be able to figure that out. And I think I just can't wait to the day that I can work full time on Blockbuster and really build something magnificent rather than, having to spend 50-50, in one job that I don't really enjoy. And I'm actually kind of feeling like I lean towards the antithesis of it as an industry, and towards, the other 50% where I just so enjoy interacting and spending time with people and growing just a really great community and brand.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I definitely I applaud you for all that you're doing. And I mean, I feel like that's a problem. I mean, that's an issue that a lot of startup founders and DAO founders face.
Right.
Is that we have the tenacity and the intelligence and the talent to to take on these big problems that have gone on in the world, and and we want to seek real viable solutions, you know um but like doing, and investors, they expect you to do this full time, you know and bootstrap your way until you get that kind of funding. um and it's like, and then there's this, like curiosity, like, oh, but why are so many startup founders so burned out? Like, what's going on with this burnout culture in being an entrepreneur
Yep.
or a startup founder? And it's like, well, because you're burning the candle at both ends to,
Yep.
to uh sustain yourself and grow your business, and then also having to do that full-time kind of business, which when you're starting it, it is full-time. So yeah, I can relate to that struggle, because at times in building Connect, I've had to kind of you know uh, take on other side work, to sustain things. And yeah, it's sad that you have to kind of, that you're in a position where you're like, oh, I have to be anonymous because I don't want my doc to find out that I'm doing this really amazing project that, or not project, but Blockbuster DAO. It does have legs. It has wings,
Yep.
and
Totally.
and there's a really amazing purpose. Excited to what you're doing. So,
Oh, thank
so,
you.
yeah.
That's great. And I also like the point about where you said, like, at least implied, like the toxic kind of entrepreneurship culture that I think kind of exists now. Like, no, like, offense to like those like Gary V or like similar types of entrepreneurs, but they often repeat that you have to be working 110% or else you're failing, or like if you're not like doing this or this or this, like you're failing as an entrepreneur, which is such BS, because taking care of yourself is how you think straight. And like there's such a huge emphasis, I think, on like burnout, in especially in our space. Like if you're just burning people out at 110%, they're not going to last that long. They're going to have churn. People are going to leave. People are going to want to retire, maybe if they're wealthy enough, right? Like people aren't going to want to be a part of your program or your initiative if you're acting that way. And like I think the growth of like the 4-day work week and ideas that just promote a lot more time and mental health and autonomy as well, I think are super important. And I couldn't agree more that I think there's just a huge need for like mental health and a counter culture to that kind of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's why I am always continuously saying to people, oh, to founders particularly, uh, you are the most important person in life. And so, what that means is if you're not taking care of yourself and taking that necessary time for your own health and well-being,
Totally.
then then you know the work that you're doing, it's gonna, I mean, it can burn you out, and and just be all for naught. So it is so important to prioritize your own health while you're building. So
Yep.
whatever it is that you're building. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you're, like trying that you actually that you at least have that kind of awareness for yourself, and that you're not like you're like, oh yeah, I gotta go. 'Cause
Yep.
I mean, and because I've noticed that that you've done some really fun kind of projects, like on Twitter Spaces, just like
Yep.
engaging and having fun with your community, and that's so important too.
Oh, totally. And I think in the
Yeah,
film space, people, it's one of the things we're always working on, I think, is in the film space, naturally independent creators are very, not to say dry, but, it's very serious, right? And it's often an art form that is taken very seriously. And, even though there are like some comedy groups and, there is some funny content there, like, I think the film space, and especially film three, can be a bit, um, serious. And I think it's super important that as communities, we also have to acknowledge that not everyone's going to be as serious about these things or have the same mindset. So it's always good to just, I'm kind of an introvert at heart, but I do appreciate like having these like extrovert activities that are important and get people involved and are just fun and sometimes silly. That's okay too.
yeah. I totally agree. Um, well, so now is Blockbuster DAO a nonprofit organization?
So yeah, in terms of like actual legal structure, that's been one of the things that we've been working on really hard to figure out, like what does that look like? Because while we've done some really cool stuff so far, I think the biggest accomplishment we'll have in our early days is being able to license a brand from a Fortune 800 company. And really, we're working on it right now, and I think it can be a really amazing partnership. And I think, uh, although it comes with implications of like how to set that up exactly, right? And there's some like legalities we have to think about, and working with a publicly traded company, like if we offer them some sort of equity, like how does that work and how do we set up the business? So the DAO inherently would, yes, of course, be a nonprofit, but at the same time, the DAO can't necessarily hold the license if we had a license. So we would have to have a corporate entity that works directly with, excuse me, works directly with the DAO. And I think there's kind of a synergy there that helps not only keep the DAO safe, but it is also allows accountability to the corporate entity that holds the license. So you can do things like have the DAO be on the board of directors, or end up granting all the equity in the joint structure to the DAO eventually, right? And so the DAO itself would, yes, be a nonprofit, but as many DAOs have kind of set up, depending on how they have to interact with the regular world, they do need a corporate entity of some kind that's able to interact and sign things and be able to like really participate in the regular economy as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a new terrain for so many, I think, in understanding how DAO structures can work, and and how they can legally work in
Yep.
business, and and so I just like I noticed that that you had some aspects and elements of being corporate but also nonprofit, and so I just thought that I would ask
Totally.
ask about that. Yeah. Um, so like, uh, in this organization structure, do you see your members as being like community members, or some of them as being sort of like flying in and flying out, and others as being like employees? How has that
Yeah,
worked out?
totally. Like right now, we're all just a community, right? And we're functioning completely independently, with no official. We're not an official corporation, and we can't be until we have the right to use the name. And we could do it under some other name, but I think we run a lot of legal risks there. So we've made sure to just really overemphasize that we are at the moment just a really incredibly diverse and accomplished fan club for the Blockbuster name with really big aspirations. And I think we've really garnered a core group of, I like to say like stewards, where people are participating and acting on behalf of the community, because we kind of need to get the thing going. And so it's hard to, we've tried to have, more public interactions and discussions around certain topics, but functioning in this kind of pre-seed startup stage, it's just been really hard to execute and get things done in time while also involving the community at such an early stage. So we've had to kind of centralize a bit in certain aspects, like in regards to negotiating with Dish, right? Like that's something we can't do with 10,000 people. Like that would get complicated if we started to try and involve a whole community there. But we can give some updates, and we also have to be respectful of what Dish is okay with us talking about, because they are a publicly traded company. They have, stakeholders, a board of directors. So we really want to respect that partnership as well. So it's kind of twofold. But I think once we get past that stage, and obviously then we can take in seed funding, we can start offering products like NFTs. And then from there, I think things will get much easier and simpler. And in our space, it's much about, giving autonomy to guilds. So I think part of the community can function in smaller sub DAOs or subgroups that can have their own agenda, have their own purpose. They can receive funding from the bigger DAO. There could be contractors, or what we often use or call bounties, like a bounty system. So we can say, hey, we need X project done. We ask the community whether they hold a token or not. We can define that and say, would you be able to design us a landing page for X event that we're holding in New York, right? And then we could get that done. Somebody can do that, and they can work as an independent contractor. And then we will probably have some salaried employees that are able to act as kind of the core team, so to speak, in that corporate entity, until we can fully create the DAO in what's called an UNA, or unassociated nonprofit. And we can, then decentralize further and turn, maybe those employees become contractors, maybe they don't, maybe they stay as employees in the UNA. We're not sure. But for now, we'll function as like a very small team with a lot of autonomy given to smaller DAOs or contractors, and then over time either grow out that salaried team or grow out the contracts or grant system that we give to guilds.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. So you've been in talks with Dish. You're communicating with them, or
Totally.
no?
Yeah, we've been communicating with them for a while, and they've been super supportive of what we're doing, and very positive interactions with them. And we've been able to speak to the right people that we need to, and we are speaking with them currently to be able to make this happen. And it's kind of a long process, and if anybody's been in kind of any negotiation, there's a bit of a song and a dance, and there's a bit of like, you got to feel the other party out. Like, and on Dish's side, this is something really important to them as well, and we've come to understand that. And who is this random organization of people who really want to do this? Can we trust them? Are they great? And over time, I think we've really just meshed. And I think our ideas of what this brand could become are really aligned. And I would hope that, it works out in the best possible way for the community, and for all of us to be able to do that. But, it is a process, and it takes a lot of trust to be able to get through these kind of things. And I think we've gotten to that stage now where you can really talk about the details and talk about what each side really wants out of this, and come to an understanding there. And I think it takes time, but we're making more, like it's exponentially getting a little bit better, right? Like where I think things are going faster, they're working better. We're really hitting our strides.
Well, that's really wonderful that this is being so open and positive and communicative. But yeah, I mean, I have heard from lots of people that corporate, like anything dealing with corporate changes and acquisitions takes a long time. Partnerships, be a process. So I think that it's interesting. That they're not doing anything this name with Blockbuster. It's just like it's this bit of nostalgia, right? Like
Yep.
most. I mean, I guess maybe it's a thing for Gen X and millennials. I don't really know if even Gen Z has too much aware. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong. Like, Blockbuster could be something that's very universal that so many people, young people know about. But I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, could you just repeat the question really quick?
Oh, well, so
Cut out.
oh, sorry. Blockbuster. It seems like it's this bit of nostalgia.
Yes.
For Gen X and millennials. But I don't really know if Gen Z has too much awareness of Blockbuster and what it was and all that.
Totally. And I think, it is an interesting dilemma that we are catering to a nostalgia element. I think that's even more why it's important that when we do this, that we're really functioning in a way that has a bigger motive in mind, right? Like if we were here to just buy Blockbuster and sell merchandise, it would not scale, right? Like it would not.
Right.
Like like you said, Gen Z would say, "What's a Blockbuster? I don't know. Like this doesn't
Yeah.
apply to me, right?" And
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a fruitful way to scale. So it's really important that we utilize that organic marketing power that's in Blockbuster, but build it into something so much more for future generations as well.
Right. Yes. Like the next kind of generation of this thing, and almost a way to bridge some of these generations together. I see it as having that kind of potential. Where Gen Z is like, what's this Blockbuster thing? And
Totally.
And it can kind of make that connection, because as being something that's a streaming service and no longer being in the realm of DVD or VHS, right? I see. I mean, Blockbuster DAO, it has a great potential for bringing these generations together on some common ground, of a
Right.
love for film.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, Gen Z is definitely a content generation, a content consumer and creator generation that, which is why we wanted to not only just focus on film, but I think, something more akin to the content greater, and including short form content of all kinds is really important, because, a lot of creators out there are young and ambitious, and they want to achieve things. And as we've seen, there is kind of a scale to set where you make a lot of short form content, people find out who you are, and you can grow into doing more longer form content. And there's just really no pipeline to do that yet that's efficient. And it really involves a ton of community building, a ton of extra work, and by allowing people to participate, these younger generations who will buy merch ad nauseum are able to now actually buy collectibles, or be able to invest or fundraise really directly with their creators they like. And I think that's super important connection that needs to be made.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I've kind of seen uh, uh, DAOs as being a really great way of building that kind of sense of community, and also doing so organically, and building senses of collaboration. Do you see DAOs as being like a future of work kind of you know organization, or even being the future of where startups are possibly moving to?
I think it so depends, and I think it's all about the type of execution you need, right? Like I think there are certain circumstances where I think centralized, like if you needed legal advice, I don't know if decentralized legal advice would suffice, right? And you might see that in like Wikipedia, right, for sourcing information or resources. Like decentralized information sharing can be risky, right? Or it could lead to some sort of false information. So I think there are some cases where centralization can be very useful and more effective at executing correctly. But I think the in-between stage that people don't talk about between DAOs and regular centralized top-down structures is cooperatives, which exist in a lot of other countries besides the US, where you still hire employees. There's a level of leadership, there's a level of ownership, but there is also accountability factored in by allowing employees to have a board seat, by allowing certain initiatives to be voted on by all employees, right? And I think we have those kind of things for shareholders, publicly, right? Like a publicly traded company will have shareholders vote on certain initiatives, but nobody asks the employees to vote, who honestly don't even have shares. They just have options, so they can't even vote in those matters, right? So I think it's super important to kind of flip that and say, hey, our community, our consumers, and our employees should be able to vote rather than our shareholders. Or in the case of crypto, sometimes it's kind of both, right? Where there's not really shares, but there is governance tokens, right? Where people can participate or become members in that. So it's a mix of both. It's employees, it's consumers, it's shareholders. And it's not limited to high wealth individuals. So I think cooperatives can be a very interesting way for companies to move without having to feel like you have to DAOify all of your processes, which can be scary. I mean, decentralization is hard, and communicating is hard, and it requires a lot of energy where you might not, like, for me personally, I know I struggle with being able to communicate everything constantly. And I'll be like, oh, well, that information is not pertinent. And then it comes later, oh, I should have been able to communicate that information to teams better, right? And so that's something that I'm working on, and there will be complications the more you decentralize, but the goal itself is worth it to overcome those challenges, to make people feel more empowered, like they're part of the process, making choices, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And 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 I I almost feel like, once corporations and businesses realize that that really, I mean, employees don't want to work for a failing company. They're not, if employees were able to make any decisions for a company, I mean, they're, their own livelihood depends on the success of the company that they're working for, right? So, I mean, they don't want to be a part of decisions that are going to cause the company to fail or to do poorly, right? So, you know,
Right.
so why not put a little bit of that voting power into people who are going in and putting like so much of themselves into the work that they're doing, right? Like 40 hours a week, that's not nothing, you know? And I mean, what that amounts to a month, a year, you know, I mean, like a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of themselves into the companies. So I mean, so giving that the kind of voting power and that you know, at least some discussion to be made about you know, what's going on, and
Yep.
not just only leaving that into the hands of shareholders. I mean,
Totally.
I wonder how Twitter employees feel about some of the, you know, things that the changes that have gone on over the past month, right? You know, and like,
Yep.
you know,
And do they have a
with
say
Elon
in
Musk
anything?
suddenly becoming their
Totally.
boss or something, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I so enjoyed this conversation. I'm gonna have to run in a little bit, but
Yeah, likewise. Well, you know, I just before we part ways, I wanted to ask you if there's anything that you want to share with the listeners. You know, any upcoming events or things that we should, you know, pay
no,
attention
yeah,
to.
just follow us on Twitter and join our Discord and jump into the community. And we're cruising slowly but surely towards a really incredible product. And I think I would hope set a precedent for DAOs in the future.
Yeah, definitely. So, yes, definitely. Follow Blockbuster DAO on Twitter, and join their Discord or their Telegram channels if you'd like to learn more and be a part of this growing community. Thank you so much, Taz, for joining us today.
Oh, thank
This was
you. It was
really
such a
great
pleasure to connect
conversation.
with you.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, we'll definitely stay connected, and
Yep.
have a great rest of your day and a great
You
week.
too.
Yeah,
Enjoy your Sunday. Thank you so
yeah, you
much.
too. Thank you.
All right, bye.